Can't believe that our first assessment in my honors chemistry class is tomorrow. That sounds really cool. All right, let's see how it works for you. And that'll allow you to insert your symbol. And showing a little chemistry love with my chemistry teacher swag. Good morning. So if you're looking at me and you're like, well, she definitely doesn't look ready for work, you would be absolutely right. So seems to be like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I have been getting up at like around 4:30 every morning and going to the gym. Mostly because I have really been reserving my afternoons for meetings, extra help, and of course, doing some product creation for TPT. So I am headed to the gym this morning. It is Monday morning. It is about 4:45 now. And once I finish up there, I'm going to head to school. Tell me about what you're doing right now.
We are crumpling this up and dropping it into the...
Oh, you want anybody here? Okay, that's right. It's a challenge. You're right.
And we're going to see how much it rises, and then we'll know how much the volume.
How much what's rising?
The water.
Okay. So do you know what this is called? Like what you're doing right now?
Volume.
Yeah, we're measuring. Yeah, exactly. Right. So we're trying to get the volume of the foil, and then what are you going to do next?
And then we're going to plug in the rest of our information to find out...
Yeah, we're plugging it into the volume. Find out the height.
Yeah.
So should that float or sink?
I was thinking it might float.
Okay, why?
Just because there might be air still trapped in it.
Okay, so yeah, because I noticed you're really hitting it. Okay, so that sounds really cool. All right, let's see how it works for you. Hi, so it is about 4:36 on Monday. I am here late today because I had a meeting right after school. Today with my students was a very good day. We are preparing for our first assessment tomorrow. One of the things that I always try to do when my students are taking an assessment is give them some sort of formative assessment where, again, I always say, like, it's not that it doesn't count, it just doesn't count for points. And so typically the formative assessment is on a Google form, and I use that mostly because the students are able to get immediate feedback. And, you know, I never want my students to walk into an assessment and say, like, I totally know what I'm doing. And then they see the assessment and they're like, I totally don't know what I'm doing. So that's kind of why I always tend to give these formative assessments. And there are different types, but obviously when they take the formative assessment before the actual, like, I guess, quiz or test, I always have them take it in like a pretty like serious kind of environment. And by serious, I just mean, you know, they're not able to get help from anybody else. There's no talking, you know. So I try to make it as realistic and as authentic an experience as possible. And I think the students really appreciate that. You know, if there was one thing that my students have said that really helped them, they definitely have said in the past that those formative assessments tend to really help. So let me show you what my formative assessment looked like today, and I'll show you a really cool tech tool that I've been using called Equatio. This is the formative assessment that I did today with my students. As I mentioned, it is a Google form. So with this formative assessment, it was on atomic structure. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through and show you some of the questions. So one of the things to try and be in a little bit more alignment with the NGSS and have students analyze data, we've been giving them some mass spec data to analyze and basically kind of look at different isotopes for a particular element. And you can see most of the questions are based on the mass spec data. But then I did mention that I wanted to show you a cool tool that I've been using. So one of the downsides, I guess, of Google Forms is that you're not able to create any kind of real like mathematical symbols. So sometimes this can be really difficult and very challenging, especially when you're trying to show the isotope symbol. So these were all created using Equatio. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm going to go in and edit this just to kind of show you how I made this. Actually, maybe I'll get rid of this one and I'll remake it. So it'll look something like this. So this is called Equatio. And so when you look down the bottom, if you click this little guy, there we go. So if you click down the bottom here, this is a free, I guess, app that you can use. So this is great for math class and it's great for chemistry, but you have all these different choices. What I tend to use is the handwriting recognition. And I do have a stylus, on my Lenovo here. So let's say I wanted to recreate it, and sometimes it is a little finicky. It's definitely not perfect, but with Equatio, what you can do is create different symbols, and this is especially helpful, like especially if you're typing in scientific notation or need scientific notation. So like, let's say I want Avogadro's number. So it'll look something like that. So overall, it's pretty good. That actually went very well. Sometimes it doesn't go that well. But then you can very simply take that and click Insert Math, and then it'll actually insert it. So you're not able to actually do this, and you can see it's right here. So you're not able to actually do this in regular Google Forms, but this add-on really helps. So if I wanted to replace the chromium symbol, this was a little finicky yesterday, but we'll see how it goes today. So what I had to do, actually let me get rid of this. What I had to do was start with the, now this is going to be one of the wrong answers. I think it was 24. Oh, I don't think that, oh, actually that does look like a 4. Okay. And this, I believe, was, I think it was 63. There we go. And then you have a really hard time writing the chromium symbol, so I just end up typing it in. So you can see the cursor is there. So you just type CR. And then again, like I said, you can just go to Insert Math. And that'll allow you to insert your symbol. And then it's really cool because when you go to viewing it and you scroll down, there it is. So you can click on the different options. So you could just click on the box, right? And you can obviously do it that way, but I think the right answer was none of these. So that's a really cool tech tool that I've been using, and that's especially helpful if you're using, if you have like naming and formula writing that you're doing. So definitely check it out. Can't believe that our first assessment in my honors chemistry class is tomorrow. I'm very excited for the students to kind of show me what they've learned, and that's what I try to tell them all the time whenever they have some sort of assessment. You know, this is really a celebration of your learning. Show me what you've learned. Show me how much you know. You know, look at it in that light. That'll definitely tend to kind of ease some of the nerves. So with that said, I am going to get out of here. I am planning something very exciting for tomorrow, hopefully after the quiz. I hope we'll have enough time, but we'll see how it goes. But until then, I'll tell you about it tomorrow. Good morning. It is Tuesday. A little bit of a different week because we are off tomorrow. So I just keep thinking to myself, I just need to get through today. I just need to get through today. I am headed into school extra early today. I have some things that I need to set up because we are starting our discussion of significant figures. I am very excited. I'm trying something a little bit different. I actually found this activity in the Chem 13, the University of Waterloo, I guess the archives. And so I'll show you what I have set up. And so this is the first time I'm trying it. It probably won't be perfect, but we'll do the best we can. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Who's going to pour it in? So we got the tear. All right, we're good. Oh, hit 0 one more time for me. Every last drop.
Maybe we do a little
Okay. All right, so my recorder, make sure you record this for your team.
Just kidding.
7.43 grams. All right, good job. Good job. So it is 3:30 on Tuesday. It's like a ghost town here. We are off tomorrow due to Yom Kippur. So I guess a lot of teachers kind of scooted out early, but I am here vlogging with you because I thought I would tell you a little bit about what I did with my students today. So for the first half of class, my students were taking a quiz. We were just, looking at atomic structure. That was all our unit. We just did like a quick little mini quiz. Took about, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes. And then the second half of class, I wanted to introduce the new unit, but I wanted them to be able to kind of get up and move around because I imagine sitting for a quiz might be kind of boring. So I thought getting them up and moving would be good. So what I did was I put together this measurement challenge. So this was inspired by a article that I saw in the Chem 13 magazine. I think University of Waterloo puts it out. I'll put the link in the description. So basically the idea is that your students are given this challenge where they have to measure out exactly 10.00 milliliters of water. But the way they have to do it is a little different. So what they have to do is they are given 3 pieces of measuring equipment. I think the original article had 4, but I just didn't have the stamina, and I didn't think my students would either. So I took 3 pieces of equipment. I took a beaker, a graduated cylinder, and a burette. And so the students were challenged using each piece of equipment to measure out exactly 10.00 milliliters of water. But the way they had to go about it was they had to go from the piece of equipment and pour that volume of water onto a weigh dish on the balance. And so we talked about how, density, if we're looking at density of water, since the density of water is 1.00 grams per milliliter, we can assume that the mass of water is going to be equivalent to the volume of water. So we got through that, and that was kind of nice to talk and review a little bit about density. Then we moved on to actually the measurement part. So one thing I did was I created a Google Doc where I put the challenge on there, and I put each piece of equipment on there, and then the students compiled their data using the Google Doc, and it worked really, really well. So let me show you what that looks like. I also ripped off this title from the C13, the chemistry, the Chem 13 article. So close enough said no chemist ever. So I put out the challenge, I talked about density, but then I had the students, notice I wrote recorder's name for the data. So the recorder is the role that I assigned in, like, whenever we're doing POGIL. So that way I had one student with the Chromebook out for each team. And you can see I broke it up according to beaker, graduated cylinder, and burette. And so what the students would do is they would write down the recorder's name, write down the mass of water that they obtained and what volume of water they must have had as a result. And obviously these 2 columns were identical. The only difference were the units. And so what was kind of nice is as a class, we were able to review the data, look for patterns in the data. And obviously the pattern was we saw as we went from the beaker to the graduated cylinder to the burette, ultimately we saw that we got closer and closer to that 10.00 milliliters. So this was very effective for talking about precision versus accuracy. So we were able to kind of look at this data and decide, what accuracy means, what precision means. We were able to kind of take a look about, what patterns did we see in the data. And ultimately, we were able to kind of talk a little bit about, some sources for error and really how measurement, is not going to be a source for error whenever they're writing a lab report. That is it for me today. I am going to get out of here, but all in all, I just am really enjoying my classes this year. My students are so much fun. They are so engaged. They are so interesting. And, they're just, they're just really positive. It's amazing when you have such positive students that are interested in what you're doing, the amazing relationships that you can build. And I really appreciate how open and honest they are. I really feel like we're on the brink of creating a really awesome classroom culture. It's still pretty early, but sometimes you just can tell when you start with your classes. So anyway, won't be vlogging tomorrow, as I mentioned, but I will be back on Thursday. I am up it's about 4:30. I am headed to the gym this morning, and then I'm going to get to school. Today at school, my students are going to finish up the measurement activity that we were talking about the other day, and then I am going to introduce them to their very first unit menu. I am very excited. Hi, so it is the end of the day on Thursday. I had a great day with my students today. I would say about 4:30 right now. Definitely a long day. I'm here mostly because I'm getting ready for my unit menu stuff. You can actually see that my baskets are here, so that's typically how I store all my assessments and whatnot, and worksheets and stuff like that. But today was a great day. My students finished up their activity for measurement. That was kind of like our phenomenon for this unit. I think I talked in the last couple of video clips about how the students were given 3 different types of measuring devices, and they had a Google doc that they were collaborating on so that we could compare measurements. Basically, the significance of that activity was to talk about accuracy and precision, and to talk about, how eventually they're going to be spending a lot of time creating their own procedures and experiments. And, the instrument that they choose is really going to dictate how well their results come out. So overall, it definitely got the message across, and the students really enjoyed having the ability to work with a burette already, which I was happy to do. It was very easy to set up, so it worked out. But I would say probably the most rewarding part of my day was when I showed the students the unit menu. I kind of went through my expectations with the unit menu and how they're, supposed to go through it. But then while they were working, I was actually able to sit and conference with a few students about their latest assessment. And so I think that was probably the most rewarding part of my day. I was able to actually talk to them and give them some suggestions for study habits and anything that I can do to help them. And they were very, very receptive. And so one of the things that I hope to do more of is when the students are doing the unit menus, I can have more of those mini lessons and mini conferences with the students just to kind of check in with them. So speaking of unit menus, let me show you what I have on this very first unit menu. I actually asked my students today how many of you have actually had choices for learning in their previous classes, and no one raised their hand, so I'm really glad I spent the time. So let me show you what I have planned for them. Don't mind my desk, but it is a complete mess. So here is the unit menu for mathematics and chemistry, and it looks just like all my other unit menus, where they have the objectives, and then I put the dates as far as what each lesson corresponds to. What I spent time doing this year that I haven't done in the past is I actually talked about all the really positive attributes of a unit menu. So for example, I talked about how let's say they, choose maybe to watch the video and they're having a hard time understanding what's going on, they can actually go through and do a different choice. I talked about how, if they're struggling with something, they then have the ability to ask me for questions because my time is freed up because I'm not, standing in front of the class and lecturing. I also showed them what's also nice is having the dates here. It tells the students what we're doing in class. So in the case that if they're absent, they're able to go through and finish the parts that we are doing in class. And then, of course, I tell them the assessment date, and that also kind of helps them to gauge what we're doing. So overall, the students seem really receptive. They especially like the fact that I had formative assessments in here, so it really will help them to kind of reflect on their learning. And, I showed them how to access this, and I showed them that, these are active links that they can click on. And they also really liked how I include some non-tech choices and then some tech choices. There's also opportunities for group work, for example, they can do some whiteboarding or they can do a worksheet. So it's really up to them. So it allows a lot of choices. And as I mentioned before, I use these green baskets for pretty much everything. So, here's my worksheet on significant figures. Here's my worksheet on dimensional analysis. Sorry, it looks kind of crazy. But I have to get that formative assessment piece. I still have to make it and then actually put it in the on a QR code. This is my formative assessment right now. I haven't taken it yet, so it's not quite done. But needless to say, what I tend to do is I'll take this formative assessment and I have a QR code reader up in the upper right hand corner here, and so what you can do is you can create a brand new QR code just by clicking edit this QR code, and then what I do is I copy and paste the form into here and it'll create your QR code this way. So the students really like it because they can use the QR code reader, and so it just makes it easier for it to pop up on the screen. So that's it for me. I am going to finish up this formative assessment and hopefully get my QR codes copied and ready to go for tomorrow. Tomorrow my students will be working on the first section of the unit menu, but a lot of the classes already kind of got a little bit of a head start, so my anticipation is that they will be able to at least finish the entire first section and maybe even start the second section. So we'll see how it goes. Tomorrow is Friday and I am very excited, and I imagine tomorrow will be a great day too. Hi, so it is Friday, TGIF, and you can see I'm a little dressed down today. Check out my cool t-shirt. My students really like this one. Oh, and I'm also wearing my cool periodic table shoes, so check those out. Oh yeah, showing a little chemistry love with my chemistry teacher swag. So my students all day have been working on their unit menu. It's going really well. This is their first one, so it does take a little bit of getting used to. There are some basics, that I have to go over as far as, my norms, my expectations for what they, do with their class time. But overall, it's going very well. The students are working together very well, which is also a plus. They're helping each other, so it's nice to know that, I don't have to be the sole, content knowledge expert in the room. The students are, freely working with each other and asking each other questions, and then usually if they can't figure it out, then they call me over. So it's been really great. So I am about to start my my third of my 4 classes, but I anticipate much of the same. The end of school, can you see the time? Ooh. I'm here a little bit later than I wanted to be, but mostly because I was having such a great conversation with my colleagues about just some strategies and stuff for instructing the AP kids. But it's been a great week. It was a great day today. Like I mentioned before, the students were working on their unit menu on the mathematics and chemistry. They seem to really be enjoying it so far. This idea of having choices really emphasizes the students, I guess, part in the learning process. And what I really enjoy seeing is that the students really want to work together, and they collaborate and they help each other. So it's been a really cool experience to see this class of students also come in and appreciate it. Last year was my first year doing the unit menus, and I said to myself, I'm going to do it again this year, of course, but I'm not, every group of students is different, so I'm not going to put too much stock in it, and I'll see how it goes, and I have to be flexible. I think what I'll still do, just like I did last year, is ask for some feedback from the students once they're done with their first unit menu. So that's what I did last year. I asked the kids to fill out a Google form, just kind of rating the unit menu and whether or not they liked it, and some suggestions for improvement, things like that. So I think that's something that I'll also anticipate doing. But yeah, other than that, it was a really productive day. The students worked really well, and overall the students are happy, and that of course makes me very happy. So I am going to head out of here now that it's almost, I've been talking for about a minute now, now that it's almost 4 o'clock. And yeah, I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you've been noticing that I've been trying to post my content every other week, so that you can kind of anticipate when you're going to see another vlog post come out. So have a great weekend. Thanks so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you found the information helpful as you teach science to your students. I really don't want to lose touch, so please make sure that you hit both like and subscribe so you get notifications every time I post a new video, and I'll catch you later.